Aston Villa 2, Nottingham Forest 1 in the battle of the former European Cup winners. Mark Donaldson, Janusz Michallik. And if you had a seat in the Holt end at Villa Park today, Janusz, you maybe needed binoculars because most of the action was up the other end. This was really a game of two halves, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it seemed at least early in the first half that the game was pretty much over. Exactly what Unai Emery and Aston Villa would have wanted ahead of their clash with Paris Saint-Germain, right? They did rotate slightly, not everybody, but quite a few rotation. We saw that from Arsenal today as well. But those two quick goals, I think, couple minutes, Mark, right, from Morgan Rogers and Daniel Malen. I thought the game was over, quite frankly, and so did Aston Villa players. And you don't want to take anything for granted. It is Nottingham Forest who are having a wonderful season. I think the first half, I thought. Maybe Forest were a bit tired. We saw that against Manchester United, didn't we, last week or last game, where Forest won but didn't look the par. So, second half totally different from Nottingham Forest, and I don't want to say that Villa were hanging on, but there was a moment after that goal that they weren't they?
I found it strange in the first half because everything, Janusz, that Nottingham Forest have done well this season to get to where they are and to progress in the cup competitions, they didn't do in the first half. They were slow, they were sluggish, they were disorganized. Normally they've got a decent line, but this time it was one back or nobody back or some people back, and it was all bedraggled. And it kind of took the second goal in a way, the two goals that you mentioned in a couple of minutes, to kind of focus them a little bit. But that's a sign of a good side, isn't it? I know they lost the game, Nottingham Forest, but they found a way to get back into the game in the second half.
Yeah, as I've mentioned, I think, you can expect Forest to be winded just a little bit, right? I mean, for the most part, the same lineup. Small detail for me, I may be picky because it wasn't the only reason why Forest were so bad. But remember, there's no Ola on that right-hand side, and he's been absolutely superb. If you look at the two goals, they really came from that left-hand side, didn't they? You're talking about Ola, who's I saw a stat who's been, the best player in all top 5 leagues in terms of recoveries in the defensive end. So, I mean, there's something to be said about that. And on top of that, Ian Maatsen once again has played tremendously well. I was just watching him in the second game against Spain where he got called up the night before. He didn't play against Spain for Holland in the first game. Wasn't even called up, as I said, and he was the man of the match there, in my opinion. So maybe, just maybe, that left-hand side was just a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said, and it's a good question mark that, Forest, even though the game looked lost, they have that quality to still bounce back, right? Because we've been waiting for Forest to fall apart for how long?
This is all about Villa, though, and time to give them some much-needed praise. And I'm glad you mentioned Ian Maatsen, because I thought that was a really good signing when he joined. But he hasn't really been able to play that much because of Lucadinho. And you see the changes that were made today by Villa ahead of the game, which we'll talk about, against Paris Saint-Germain in midweek. And you wonder, is that going to weaken it? But what it's done, it's freshened things up. It's given them fresh legs. As far as other teams are concerned, where do Villa compare in your eyes with strength and depth of squad?
Well, here I am a little bit conflicted. I almost wish our friend LME was here, right? Because I get a rise out of him because he praises his team, rightfully so. And I sometimes pick at him, but I think I do have reasons to pick on him, and acknowledging that, by the way, it's a great season, and maybe this team is just not quite ready to deal with all these competitions. And look where they are in the Champions League, how far they've gotten, and that's part of the reason, because I think they're good. I think they are deep, but there's still something that Unai Emery has to figure out, right? Because on one hand, you say to yourself, 46 goals scored in the Premier League is not good enough. This team is way too better than that, right? Look at the attacking options they have in terms of the squad and everybody else. I know Leon Bailey wasn't available, but in general, right? Mm-hmm. So 46 goals. And on the other hand, 46 conceded, it's way too many. And perhaps it's the reason why they're fighting so hard, where they are in the, right now, that got them to 6th place, I think. But let's not forget, Newcastle are right behind them, 2 games in hand, right? They'll play this weekend and have one more. So that's why I'm a little bit conflicted with that, because as good as they are, as good a job as they've done, I think in a season like this, it should be their sort of season, shouldn't it? Right, with all these teams dropping off. I'm talking Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, obviously not the same, and Spurs, and on and on. So great job, but I just think that maybe the intensity of the Premier League and what they've done so far in the Champions League is a bit of an excuse. Bottom line, they're a very good team, but I expected a lot more in the Premier League from them than what they're showing. I mean, 46 goal difference.
Yeah, I'm going to stand up for them here. They're sixth in the table. There's a decent chance that they'll be in the top 5. And we haven't seen anything from the kind of fourth team in the English Premier League. And the reason I say fourth team, because the team that kind of gets into that Champions League spot that hasn't been there before. Newcastle couldn't do it. They couldn't finish Champions League spot after they've done it. So, yeah, I get that. But for them to find their form now, and that's the key thing, because you played the game, Janusz, you know what momentum's like. They have a really good opportunity, not just to progress, although it'll be tough in the Champions League, but to get back into the Champions League. And for me, qualifying for the Champions League again, while in the Champions League, for a team that hasn't been there in all those years, is up there with as much of an achievement as last season getting in for the first time.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I'm just being picky, but I think
that.
But I think you know what I'm saying. But bottom line is, I think of him as look. This is, I think they've won 7 straight in all competitions. So it's not like this is a bad thing. But I think of them so much that by now I would have thought they'd be in the 4th spot, right? I mean, they're better than Chelsea, probably better than Newcastle, as good as anybody there. So I'm just saying that it's kind of. Looking at the table, and by the way, as we're sitting here and talking about the difference, 1, 2, 3 points, and who knows, when it's all said and done, Villa may be in the 4th spot. But just getting there, it seems slow, and I don't want to give him this excuse of Champions League wholeheartedly, because I think they're good enough to be in the position that they're in the Champions League, and I think they should be higher in the league table.
All it takes in midweek is one win from any English team competing to ensure that 5th place next season gets into the Champions League. So that's a huge caveat. Now, when you and I and LME and others have spoken, Shaka as well, on ESPN FC, we wondered how far down we should go to get to those teams that are still in contention for a Champions League spot. Are we going down as far only as 7th now in Newcastle? Brighton, again, is that too far now? Because we've got Newcastle on 50, then Villa on 51, City on 51, Chelsea 52, and Forest 57. Is it basically the top 2 plus 2 from the next 5?
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at the table, just Villa, all the way to 7 in Newcastle, right? As I said, Newcastle will have a say. Obviously, for them, massive win in the cup over Liverpool. There's so much quality right there. Brighton, again, losing today, a red card in the game. I think it's a step too far. Same with Bournemouth. You look at Bournemouth and Brighton, I think they're going to fall away just a little bit. Now, I haven't looked at everyone's schedule to be sure, because, I suppose there's some easier ones there. But I think we're talking about the 7 spots, and just a question of, Newcastle, Villa, Chelsea, obviously in that spot, in Manchester City, and they'll decide who the top 5 spots will be. And it's going to be a wonderful fight. So that's why I'm kind of, that little bit about Villa. And, if we were talking about Newcastle, I could have been saying the same thing. But it's going to be interesting. It's not for sure.
Yeah, I think I said 2 from the next 5. It'll be 3 from the next 5. And if City, who've got probably the easiest schedule of the lot of the teams, if City end up 3rd, then it's 2 from the next 4. So great incentive. And Forest look like they've pretty much secured it as well, despite this defeat. Just a word on them and why they have been so successful this season with as little of the ball that they have had. What is the style of football that they are playing this season that has allowed them to be as successful as they have? And can other managers learn from them?
You're talking about Forest, right? Look, I mean, they play with them themselves. Clearly, you can identify their style, right? I mean, the counterattack is superb, second to none. Good organizations. They know their strengths and weaknesses. It almost seems that, that game plan is always the same. But what's important is that it's always followed, right? So that's not always that easy. Here we are with Nottingham Forest, who I thought in the seasons before were similar. I don't think there's that much of a difference, but it's obviously that belief. and opportunism. I think they saw that opportunity because of a lot of big teams underperforming right now, and game by game they listen to Nuno Espirito Santo. These are players that know that it's not going to be all that easy to be moving to big teams, and yet they probably realize at some points, as you said, hey, we're playing for a massive club, at least historically, right? And this is a great spot to be in. We all work. We don't have superstars. We've all come in, or most of them come in from clubs where they were deemed surplus to requirements, or maybe not good enough, right? We're talking about, Hudson-Odoi or Elanga. And I think sometimes you catch that spirit and you get everybody on the same page, and it works.
Let's end by talking about Villa in midweek against Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League. First leg tie on Wednesday. And now Villa will be hoping the Paris Saint-Germain players are still drunk from winning the title this weekend, but that ain't going to happen. They're professional. PSG are the favourites in this tie. So how do Villa frustrate, annoy, upset, and somehow get through in this tie?
Super organization, right? I mean, Villa's known in Emery to play very, very high. I don't know. I think he's got to be smart and pragmatic because when you talk about PSG and the power and the pace that they have everywhere, right up front. And today they won. Obviously a heavy rotation today. I didn't see the game, but I know Dembele and Barcola didn't start, and João Neves didn't start. The midfield. Villa's midfield is superb. You're talking about Vitinha and João Neves. I mean, they're just Vitinha for me. I mean, the best midfield player in the world right now. It's incredible how well he's playing as well. So they have that strength. And as I've mentioned, Due again, who scored. There's so many options. So in terms of fullbacks, Nuno Mendes playing tremendously. Hakimi on the other side as well. So a full package. It's a different PSG team, right? I mean, they went away from all the superstars, from the likes of Neymar, Leo Messi, and Kylian Mbappe, to hungry young players who are absolutely listen to the way Luis Enrique wants to play. And this is, old Barcelona type of play, but a little bit quicker, right? And full pressure, great recovery, and all of that. And this is a team who's been just in superb form. I mean, when was the last time, Mark, we said that Paris Saint-Germain was really one of the favorites to win it? Even though they've been there, right? They've been in the final before, but we always talk to them, talked about him as a bit of a plasticky club. No longer that. So Villa really has to take advantage of their chances, but most importantly, be really well organized defensively.
It would be the ultimate irony if you get rid of all your superstars, or most of your superstars, and then go and win the trophy. You brought your superstars to the club in the first place to try and win. They'll be favourites. They know that. Complacency, I'm sure Luis Enrique won't allow. But they're up against, yes, it's Villa, but they're up against a guy in Unai Emery that has won in Europe 4 times in the Europa League, 3 times with Sevilla and once with Villarreal, and also knows what it's like to have success at Paris Saint-Germain, having won the title with them in 2018. Albeit it's different. That was 7 years ago. But could he be the X factor, Unai Emery, in this time?
Absolutely. Just because, going back to your own club, we see this, right? PSG has had just about every major manager. He's not going to be the first one going back there and playing. But I think that experience that you've mentioned in European Cups, mainly in Europa League, but still, prolific winner, great tactician. So this is going to be right up his alley, right? Because whatever we're saying, he already knows that. He knows that he's got to come up with a special plan for these 2 games, and he's going to try to have his players execute that. So I always like the fact that the second leg is at home, although we've seen for Paris Saint-Germain that's not a problem in this competition for them, but I think this first away leg is going to be very important because as I was saying, look, Villa Park is a special place. And even though in the league, I was just saying a little bit earlier that they haven't taken advantage of all the chances they've had, perhaps they should have scored many goals, but there are goals in them. This is a team that on their day have 4, 5, 6 players that can punish anybody. So, look, make sure you get a somewhat positive result in Paris, and I believe it's a possibility. I mean, PSG has to convince us, right? I mean, it's great, but they are young, and to some degree, some of these players may be a little inexperienced. So, yeah, Unai will know what to do. I think his plan is going to be correct. The question, as always, can the players execute it?
Yeah, good point. The second leg being at Villa Park, and I started this piece by talking about the Holt end, and all the action was up the other end from the Holt end today. But what a noise that will be for the second leg at Villa Park. PSG in the first leg are at home. Full coverage of that one on ESPN FC. My thanks to Janusz. Good win for Villa today. Might have been holding on at the end, but they should have scored more goals in the first half. They win it by 2-1.